Sure. Welcome to the bonus eclipse edition of 2024. Liz and Mr. Reality answer questions. You asked about my healing methodology. That's a great question. So, what I've been doing is studying lots of different quote unquote scalar healing methods. And the problem with scalar healing is that nobody knows what it means. And therefore, a lot of people are producing garbage to share with you that say that it works. And when you start looking at how scalar waves are produced, a lot of these people are not producing scalar waves. So my theory was, how can I make a device which is going to heal people in a meaningful way, actually generating and creating a scalar wave energy that I can program and imprint? So that's what we're working on. And it's a work in progress. It'll cause me, I'm building it myself. And so it will create scalar healing waves for people, and you will be able to hopefully feel those effects.
So, what is so interesting about that is that the spooky two boxes, they do emit a Rife frequency. So, can you explain the difference, please, between the Rife frequency and the scalar frequency?
Yeah. So another thing is Raymond Rife. A lot of people don't know. They heard the name but don't know a lot about him, and they can research this online. He made a lot of things. He said he could heal a lot of things and destroy a lot of pathogens, a lot of problems. And when you make those claims, people that are in control don't like those claims. So I'm going to tell you that my device shouldn't possibly work to start out with. And that way, I think I'm covered. And so if it does work, that's a bonus. But I'm going to tell you, it shouldn't
Okay.
work. Um, the Raymond Rife frequencies are, a lot of them he just, kind of made up. He had no real method to test all of the, you know, tens of thousands of frequencies that he suggested are frequency healing methodologies. So but the difference in the spooky two boxes is that they are just essentially a Raymond Rife EMF generating device, and they don't produce any scalar waves, despite saying that they produce scalar waves, but they don't, they can't, because you need two antennas producing the same pulse frequency. And when I say pulse frequency, it can be, you can be audible or non-audible, but like if I have a 8 hertz frequency being pulsed through an antenna, I need a secondary 8 hertz frequency being pulsed through a different antenna at an alternating frequency. So it's like two sides of the same coin. And when you pulse those two frequency waves, they cancel each other out. And that canceling out energy is actually the scalar wave. So there need to be two antennas if you're making any scalar energy.
So that's really interesting to me because, now, how does that differ from the Bob Beck device? Because the Bob Beck device was very, very effective, and that was sending in pulses. Is that very different to what you have discovered?
Oh yeah. So the Bob Beck is a plant growth stimulator that you can buy online. It's powered by a 9-volt battery, and it works on the ulna uh, of your wrist. You put little cathodes on your wrist, and it's supposed to pulse at different frequencies and purify the blood. It's called a blood purifier, quote unquote. It was a great idea, but it's only pulsing 9 volts onto your wrist, and it can't go through your entire blood supply. But that's not producing any scalar waves either. It's just like an EMF pulse on your wrist that's powered by a 9-volt battery.
And what does the pulse on the wrist actually do? I mean, do we know?
Well, looking at that, we could say that it's just a way to not irradiate, but to give sort of like a vibrational current into your blood supply. It's not going to really purify your blood in a meaningful manner, because typically your blood's not the thing that's wrong. But that's the theory behind the Bob Beck device.
Ah, you've really done your research.
Oh yeah, I
My goodness.
read so many of these sites, and it's hard to parse the hooey, but
So your machine, is it going to have Rife and scalar frequencies combined?
uh I'm not sure that all the right frequencies are available. I'm not sure that they're useful. I'm not sure that they're meaningful. But I'm gonna go through and determine which of those frequencies are beneficial for certain conditions. And I can ask source, I can do muscle testing, we can do remote viewing to find out if it's beneficial, and you'll find out if whether or not those frequencies that are proposed do anything. But when you run like a Rife scan, so they have these devices, you can scan someone remotely. You could run that same scan like 3 times in a day and get like a range of things that are wrong with you the first time, that aren't the second time, that aren't the third time. And so there's so many, you, there are a lot of things that the scan tells you are wrong with you that probably aren't, but it's just trying to determine something to tell you. It's looking for a lot of outputs to say what's wrong with you. So
Yeah,
I'm not saying
that's
that my advice won't be right, but it will have. I don't. I want to divorce myself from Rife because he did go to jail. So vibrational tuning.
that's so crazy. What is interesting is, in the last couple of weeks, I actually have managed to probe a couple of scalar, well, for lack of a better term, spooky two boxes, and you know, one had a really one had a really sort of egotistical energy, and another one had a very effeminate energy. Like it tends to know what you need. It would be interesting to probe the consciousness of these devices to find out, what is it we need. They seem to know, but I think that the actual scalar healing, uh, the actual scalar wave is more powerful than the Rife wave. I mean, do you have evidence to support that, or have you read
Oh
that
yeah,
somewhere?
10,000%. That's absolutely true. And so the scalar waves are very difficult to produce. And nobody out there proposing that they're able to create scalar waves has actually built anything that does that. So my device will actually create scalar waves. And in those scalar waves, you can program those waves to do anything at all, which you bring up an interesting point. The benefit is
It
that you
like
have to have a
scalar Rife plus.
right, the monitor that you're using. It's kind of with remote viewing too. The monitor that you're using must be good enough to direct those waves and to give them energy and force. So when you have a monitor in remote viewing, you want to get somebody that isn't going to lead you or direct you or bring their own baggage to the remote viewing session. The same way in this healing modality or tuning modality, we're calling it. Me as the monitor who runs the devices would like to impart only that which is beneficial to you and nothing from myself or my environment. Part as I create this new thing, each of the modalities that I test are going to be different. So I might pulse at a certain frequency for 6 hours. I want you to tell me how that feels. We might pulse you at a different frequency for 6 hours. I want you to tell me how that feels. Now, in the Rife system, each medical condition that you may be suffering from, whether it's cancer, Lyme disease, or whatever, you can make your own device that's a Rife device at home. So you can test that at home, but it's only pulsing like an EMF current. And you can test what EMF current that it's producing, but it's only one EMF signal. So there's no scalar there. Um, when does the next remote viewing course begins? It will begin in May. My ongoing TAP plus plus will begin for everyone that's taken my remote viewing course. I was going to offer ongoing training to them so they can continue practicing at remote viewing. Am I looking to fix anything in particular? It really depends on the client. So for the Spooky 2 device, they want you to buy their boxes, they want you to be the operator, they want you to fix yourself. The problem with that is that the placebo effect is very real and very strong. So we might believe that something actually happened, even though it didn't. And it's like the sugar pill. You give somebody this pill and you say, this is very strong, only take one a day and they're healed. No, it's the body's ability to do that. But what I'm doing is creating a specific frequencies in a scalar field with you in the middle of that scalar field, and then you will tell me how you feel. Was your condition better? I'm going to ongoingly ask you to tell me what your situation is and how it's getting better.
So I don't think that the spooky 2 is just placebo. It definitely works. The problem is it takes a long time, right? A very long time. So, when and there's lots of people that offer lots of different services, but dependent upon how complex the issue is, you would have to like literally be in that field all the time. I don't find it's placebo, although I understand that some of it could be placebo, but what I am finding is that when you have a service like and you sit in that scalar field for, I don't know, maybe 5 hours, you will feel the effects of the healing. But remember, Ronan, you remember like the whole medical applications in remote viewing, right? The body's natural defenses kick back in. So just having scalar in short bursts, it doesn't, or rife in short bursts, it doesn't actually, dependent upon the complexity of the problem, it doesn't tend to resolve it. I mean, what do you think about that?
You're absolutely right. So I'll tell you my condition. So I got like a twist in my leg, and my T band on my right leg got sort of like in a little bit of funk, and the brain rewired itself to make that not work. And when I went to a kinesiologist, someone who like is a professional stretcher, they stretch you, they walk you through exercises. He showed me that you really can move that muscle, but your brain has just been rewired to not move it. And so we fall back into that rut. If you don't do the stretching exercises, your brain will say, oh, I can't move it, twist up, tighten up. And that's we get the same rut with pain or a chronic issue. It's you're on that frequency of the chronic issue or the pain or the I can't move. So yes, you can, but you have to continually remind and continually repulse that healing or tuning wave to people, or that stretch, because your brain is very adaptive and it can, even if you take the same vitamins day in, day out, your brain's going to adapt. So you need to mix those up as well.
Oh, speaking of vitamins, do you think that your device you know how like sometimes people put vitamins or medication or whatever remotely to the person that's receiving the healing? Do you think that your device is going to be able to do that?
It will be able to do that to an extent. I can send you, but it needs to be over time. You can't just do
Right.
like send someone, hey, I sent you some vitamin C. You're good for the rest of your life. Well, you're supposed to take
No.
vitamin C a couple times throughout the day. So if you're in my tuning field, then it will help you on that day, but not ongoing. The other thing we found is that you can't put more than one person in the field. So the people that tell you, "Oh, I'm creating a healing circle for you," you want your own healing to go to you and not to someone else, because you can pick up on the vibration of the problem that someone else has. Let's say I put you, Liz Cross, into a healing circle of someone that is going through chemotherapy. Well, if you're in
Oh
that
no.
healing circle, you're going to feel the effects of that chemotherapy, even though you've never had it. So it's an issue with sending out the same signal to people and making sure that they're isolated in a single session. So I can send information to you and then send it to the person that needs for their chemotherapy, but it'll be in a separate closed session. And each of the crystals that I have within my device are flashed and they're purified and they're all the energy is taken out, they're reset so that none of that energy from your session goes into them and vice versa.
Yeah, that's really important. And also what I liked about what you explained to me was that the spooky two boxes are basically like a transmutation device. So they have to pull energy from somewhere in order to transmute it and for it to do its job. Is that correct?
They need to pull information from somewhere, and that usually information is usually
Yeah.
source. So I don't know what the best thing is for your condition. And I think that's kind of almost hubris of Rife to say, oh, if we make a scan of you and we can tell you all these things that you're vibrationally off on and then send you a reset scan, that's a little bit too much hubris that I want to take on. You have an optimum state. And in a remote viewing session, I say, what is the optimum health trajectory for this person? A lot of times there is no solution for them. You know, if they're at an end stage disease and the next stage is death, I can't find the solution in remote viewing because it doesn't exist. They're too far over that
Yeah.
mountain to come back from.
Oh, and absolutely. Like the CTT, as you know, it can only do so much. But if it is the dying process, nothing can override unless you have put in a miracle in your timeline and your design. Nothing can override that dying process. I have tried and tried. I use the CTT, and every single time I get down to the soul level, the soul says, Liz, leave me alone. You're wasting your time. I'm checking off the earth plane, right? My time is up. I'm ready to go. So when that's in the soul path, I don't think any healing modality can override the dying process. I mean, that's just, something natural. If we were supposed to be here forever, we would be in a body. But obviously, that's not the way that this life is designed. We get a finite period of time to come down in a body to do what we need to do. That's why I say all the time, God, if y'all are just hanging out watching the Kardashians or whatever nonsense there is on TV, which most of our group doesn't, but if they are, they're wasting their time. You have a very limited amount of time. You think about it, it goes by so fast. And in the next lifetime, your circumstances can be completely different to this lifetime. And don't forget about the mind wipe, because you may not even connect with this previous lifetime in the here and now where we are now in order to understand that you had all these opportunities of soul growth. You may not have those opportunities again. So you
Right.
all need to make the most of it. Seriously, but absolutely correct 100%. And people get frustrated about that. But if there's a which there is, the soul is ready to check out, there's nothing you can do. It's a process, and no modality can seem to override that process.
Yeah, and you guys may have noticed it in some of the probes that Liz and I do. My goal is always to understand that dying process, what the situation is like over there on the other side, what their regrets are. And I don't ask that to dig into their past or, kind of put that person on the spot and make them feel bad. It's to understand, are there regrets that you had? And no one has ever said, I wish I had watched more television. They always say, yeah, I wish
Yeah.
I'd spent more time with my loved ones, played with my dog, been outside more,
Yep.
stopped to smell the roses and enjoyed the life that I have, because the life up here is not like what you've got down there. And it's almost like opportunistic for us to say, hey, take advantage of everything that you can, everything that you have in the here and now, because the there and then it'll be too late.
But the dying process, oh my God. Like I tried to override it so many times, and you just can't. You just
Yeah.
can't. And I tried and tried and tried.
Well, I'll tell you something that I did. So I'm a like a wizard, I would say. And my grandma was not well. and she was experiencing, she'd been into a nursing home, she was in the hospital, she was like 87 years old, and I was like, just a little kid, like 13 years old, but I knew what kind of power I had because no one had told me I don't have that power. And I was able to keep her locked to the earth plane to make her heal because it was selfish of me. I wanted her to heal. I wanted her to get better. I wanted to play with grandma and have her around my life. And I I realized she was stayed around for like a day and a half, and then I realized my I was being selfish, and I realized, and
Mm,
I allowed her to be let go, and I did that like in a little meditation of mine too, and then that day she passed away, and so
yeah,
I always felt like I locked her into that earth plane because I wanted her grounded. I wanted her to get better. I didn't know about the dying process. I wasn't able to allow it to happen. And when I did, she crossed right over.
yeah, yeah. You have to be able to let go. You have to. Mind you, I think that I'll fight till my very last breath. I hope that I do. But certainly if a loved one is dying and they're suffering, you have to be able to let them go.
We're talking about healing in general and all the other life systems. We're not doing a consciousness transformation technique meditation today. It's something fun, unique, and new. So you have the chance to raise your hand, ask me any questions about remote viewing. I
You
also have
can say that.
talk therapy that I go through. So a lot of times people will go through therapy and they'll try and get over past issues. And I have a healing methodology where I talk to you for about an hour and I go through the conditions that you've had in this lifetime and past lifetimes, and we allow healing and apologies to come through and forgiveness to come through so that you can leave those attachments behind and allow yourself to have higher ascension here on the plane of earth that we're all living on. And I call that awakening self-healing, where we go through like over an hour and a half and back over 500 years of your life and pull out those problems and then work to heal them.
Yeah. So today, as you can probably hear, I am actually on the motorway in the UK. I'm in England. I got here about, I don't know, 3 hours ago. And because I'm going to see a very sick relative who is about to die, speaking of the dying process, and I wanted to be able to come and say goodbye. Um, so we're not doing CTT today as a group. We're also, we can answer questions, but yeah, I can't do CTT because I'm like literally behind the wheel. What I will do is when I get where I'm going, I'm going to do a CTT recording and then we'll post that for you guys if you wanted to follow along as a group. I'm so sorry, but I do need to go see my dying relative. So it really is an opportunity to ask questions and learn. Now, Ronan, have you remote viewed the eclipse at all, or what's happening down there?
I did a meditation on the eclipse and I looked at it and I did some. Yeah, we're not going to be able to see the eclipse, even though it's going to pass right over my house. It's going to be too cloudy. So, if I had a nickel for every hour of coverage I have seen about the eclipse, I would have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of nickels. So, it's crazy how crazy people are about this crazy eclipse. If I cared enough, you can watch it online. So, I'll probably just do that, watch the NASA feed. Um, there are no benefits to the eclipse. There are no anything that's going to be, nuts or crazy during the eclipse.
No.
Um, Nothing will happen during the eclipse. This is the eclipse path right here. You can see, and it's going to be coming right over there. And then here's the eclipse from last year. Stephanie, go ahead.
Hi, I had just wanted to ask you a couple questions, Ronan and Liz. So, my understanding that is that every disease has a frequency. So,
Yep.
could Liz probe these diseases individually and ask the disease what frequency would work in healing that disease?
That's a tough one because in order to do
That's a
that,
good question.
you'd have to do it as a
Sorry.
binary answer, right? You'd have to go through and get that exact frequency, and frequencies go out to like 3 or 4 decimal places in a lot of cases. So if I were to say, oh, liver cancer pulses at 12.253 hertz, that would take a long time to get to it. And it doesn't really tell us numbers, does it, Liz? Like frequencies aren't
I
good at revealing their number frequency, especially in remote viewing or in the lottery. I might be a billionaire, but I haven't looked at my Powerball ticket yet. But
no,
numbers are hard to
you're
remove.
not. You're not. Somebody won it somewhere else. I
Ah,
mean, numbers
rats.
are hard to pull, but we could definitely try to get a range. Like I could go in and probe it, get a range of what the disease is, and then maybe talk to, although it's very dangerous, okay, you don't really want to engage with diseases. So you'd have to make sure you put all your shields up. But I could go in and say, okay, how long, how many hours, how much time, and what frequency would need to be zapped into this particular area of the body in order to try to heal it.
And that's why before I give you, a session in vibrational tuning, I'd want to have you tell me all the things that are wrong with you. And I can use remote viewing too to find out what's wrong with you that you might not know. A lot of times you go to the doctor and say, I've got this pain here and I don't know what it is. Well, a doctor might not necessarily know. They'll have to do an MRI. But as a remote viewer, I can look at you and scan you and tell you what's wrong with you, what the condition is, and what the optimum method is to make it better. But it's not always going to be what the doctor tells you sometimes.
But would you have to do a full remote viewing session? You would have to do a full session, right?
No, my medical scans take about 10 minutes. And so they're a little bit the same
How
as
do
an
you do that?
MRI.
Sorry, how do you do that?
I have a medical scanning template. I teach that in my TAP remote viewing course as well. I teach you how to go through and do a medical scan of people, and you have to set aside your biases about the person, about the condition. And we've got a template that shows you what's wrong with the person, what steps should be taken to help them, what vitamins they would need, what supplements they would need. I could even add like a frequency chart to them. A lot of times there's a secondary scan that I do on chakra systems too. We can find out if there's a chakra blockage too. And we do know, we've read that different chakra have different hertz pulses. We can see if that's right too.
That's true. Different chakras put out different frequencies. Absolutely. And you can see if your chakra, like you could ask the question of, well, is my chakra, the optimum frequency is X, and is my chakra running at X frequency? Well, no, it's not. Why isn't it? That's, there's 1,000 ways to probe a problem.
Yeah, and just going into a vibrational tuning scan, you don't come to me. I do it remotely. And so this tuning frequency that I send to you remotely, and you tell me whether or not you feel it. But if there's a chakra blockage, that could come from a past life, and so that would be like a direct kind of, I don't call it psychotherapy, I call it awakened self-healing talk session with you, where we go and look back through the evolution of like your lifetime over the last 3,000 years. Any other questions, Steph?
Yeah, just with what you were talking about there, I started thinking about color frequencies for healing. If those could be identified through probing, and how effective they would be. And then also the last question I have, and then I'll mute myself, is about laughter as healer. Would that be as good as some of these frequencies we're talking about?
Laughter does produce energy and endorphins in your body, so it's not really healing, but it helps. If you have a condition, it's going to send you endorphins and make you feel better. So laughter is a great drug, but it's hard to find things funny now. And we just also found out that everything we listen to is designed to make us less empathic, but work on trying to bring that empathy back into your life. This other thing about chromotherapy is actually another condition or another healing modality that I've studied a lot, I've looked at, and none of the other devices have what my device will have. So it's going to have a chromotherapy component where we pulse LEDs at a certain frequency, and sort of like it's a variable frequency. So your picture, your name will be in like the well of information that's being sent, and we'll pulse the LEDs at different frequencies, and they'll create sort of type of chromotherapy healing for you as well. So it's not just the scalar tuning. We need to see if those interfere, and I think that they do. So it's going to need to be a separate session that can't be bolted onto a scalar wave, because you have to be very careful when you make scalar waves. Even like something like an eclipse can affect the frequency and the healing capacity of a scalar wave. So I have to make sure that I'm not bolting on too much into one session for you. And also, that session that I send to you will be about 4 hours long, and it might be broken up into like a couple of days. And so you could either choose to get a text alert or an email alert that says, we're sending vibrational tuning to you now. Please let us know what you feel. And then it'll send it to you again over the week.
Wow. Thank you so much, Ronan and
Yes.
Liz.
Judy says, yes, I did a scan of you in class, actually. You took my tab class, and I noticed that you had a vitamin deficiency. And I looked at the symptoms, and they were definitely related to that vitamin deficiency that you had. Do you want to share anything else about the class, Judy?
Hello.
Hi there.
Yeah. So I did the class twice. Um, it's great for me because I really didn't know much about remote viewing. And because of Ronan's system and the way you go through it and the methodology of it and practicing, it was really good for my helping my intuition and and it was good. I mean, I was doing things that I didn't think I could really do with practice, and yeah, it's good. Great. I highly recommend it. You learn a lot about yourself as well.
Yeah, that's true. You do learn about yourself, and you check your ego at the door, and you learn a lot about how to set aside your imagination in the course as well. It's a 6 week course, and actually, I just saw that another group is selling their own course class. So it's like 6 courses over 6 months. I think they meet like once a month, and it's like $1,800 or something. So that seemed like a lot of money. My course is 24 hours. It's over the course of 6 weeks. We meet twice a day or twice a week, sorry, for 2 hours, usually Tuesdays and Thursdays. And it's going to be 1498 this year, but everybody listening that is listening to this video will get a 50% discount. So if you're interested, email remoteviewit@gmail.com. I'm happy to talk to you about anything. There are payment options available for it too. I mean, you can sit in front of a Rife machine, and because it's pulsing a certain electromagnetic pulse at you, it might make you feel better, but it's not going to make everybody feel better. It might make you feel like, oh, it's giving me anxiety. I feel stressed about it because that frequency doesn't work for you. So there's no like one size fits all resonance for somebody, and there's no one size this chromotherapy works for everybody. So the question was, does remote viewing make your psi better? And Judy said yes. For me, practicing and the feedback, it helped increase your psi efficiency. And some of the things that you got in class, I'll just say, Judy, if you don't mind me sharing, were, blew me away. They were excellent. Can I access the Akashic records? I don't teach accessing the Akashic records. I've been exploring it, but if I do, it's not past life regression, it's past life healing. I mean, you can go back and look at a life to say, oh, I had these issues in it, and I can help you see that lifetime. And so in the awakening self-healing hour-long talk therapy that we go through, that I do, it helps you forgive, it helps you release that trauma that you've attached to all those past lives. So when I was doing a reading with Liz, so it wasn't a reading, it was a chat with Caravaggio, one of the famed authors of the Renaissance. We were talking to, it just so happened Jesus came in, and Jesus sent me this image of a teeter-totter. And he said, we carry all these problems in our lifetime, and you might be weighed on that teeter-totter. Think of your lifetime as like a straight line. All your lifetimes, it's a straight line. The trauma and the stress that you have from previous lifetimes weigh like a weight, taking you back to that different, that previous state. So you might be weighed down by the people and the experiences that you had in a previous lifetime, and that might be 4,000 years ago. And you wouldn't really get to that in talk therapy with a psychotherapist, because they don't, most of all, believe in past lives, but they don't look for that energy. So I teach you how to look at your energy line and figure out where that weight is shifting. And then we remove it so that you can have balance and equilibrium, not just in this life, but in past lifetimes too. And that's called my awakening self-healing But right now, from April 1st to actually April 25th, we're in a Mercury retrograde. And so, astrologically speaking, I wouldn't take on any new projects. And that's even a week after that retrograde ends. And so, it depends on astrologically speaking, where your planets fall during that retrograde, where the houses are in that, where they fall in the retrograde. And it would take a lot of work to create like an astrological profile of you. I'm very talented and knowledgeable. Oh, thank you. Yes, I am. I do. I'm very talented. I read a lot and I research a lot and I try and look for the facts in things and what's not true in things too. And I can usually see through what I'm reading or hearing or based. I bet. So here's a background on me. I started remote viewing from Major Ed Dames in 2002, and I used his modality for about 13 years. And when I say that, it's practicing remote viewing like a couple times a week. Sometimes it was once a week, sometimes a week or two would go by. But every week, I'm practicing with a 30 to 40-minute remote viewing session. And a session is me looking at an 8-digit alphanumeric number, recording my perceptions, kind of like what you were doing too, Chris, is just recording your perceptions, but in a structured way and taking notes on my perception, my intuition. And so I've remote viewed a lot of different extraterrestrial encounters that clients come to me and they want to know what really happened. We've remote viewed different kinds of off-world technology and even on-world technology, but you can get into the minds of people that you're remote viewing. The best thing about remote viewing is that you never know what you're remote viewing. So you go into it blind. I don't want to tell you, hey, we're going to remote view the Russian military installation targeting wherever, because your biases kick in. So unconsciously, all of that information already, and you're tapping into your unconscious and separating the data from your imagination in the remote viewing process. Yes, remote view it at gmail.com.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, certainly. Om is also good. Yeah, any type of meditation that you want to do, if you couple that with a pronouncement verbally that is like repetitious or that gets you into a zone, it's that feedback that you get and that you hear that gets you into the same resonance. So if you start with a mantra, keep that mantra up because it's ingraining in you that when you say that mantra, you're going to get into like the alpha or theta brainwave state.
No, I didn't, but I just wanted to say that I did take your class, your remote viewing class, and for me, it was very phenomenal. It was very good. At times, I felt like a little intense because I felt like a lot of rewiring was happening in my brain. But overall, I learned so much. I really did. And I just wanted to say thank you so much. And I really appreciate you.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. That's very kind of you to say about anyone
I
that
have questions about the
interviewed on any
eclipse.
of the probes because I remember everything I've ever said, which is abnormal also. I can go back in conversations that I had in like the 90s and remember who said what, which most people are upset by.
I have questions about the eclipse. What should we be doing as a whole or in this group to raise your vibration or frequency? Is there something that we're supposed to be tapping into?
Not really. I mean, it's not it, all the people that say that are doing it for clicking. They're doing it to say, oh, you can raise your vibrational frequency. It's less solar rays on the sun in that crossover point. So everyone that's talking about a new vibration, a new superpowers, they're just doing it to try and get you excited about it. It's not really
Gotcha.
a thing that's going to have any meaningful effect on anybody. But if you believe that, then maybe you could make it happen. But can RV practices improve your memory? You're supposed to forget in remote viewing, and you're supposed to just move through and collect data points each time you get a new piece of information. So every like 5 to 7 seconds, you should be getting a new piece of data that you're writing down or speaking or recording. If you do have trouble with memory, it could be a brain related issue. And when you start remote viewing, your brain is going to be rewired both metaphysically and realistically, because you're using muscles, psi muscles that you've have been had that have been dormant for, so much of your life. So if you, yes, it can help you certainly begin to remember things better. And you can program yourself also to have a great memory. And just instead of saying things like, oh, I forget everything, start repeating the mantra for yourself: I remember everything easily and joyfully. I never forget anything. And when you start to tell yourself this in your mind and aloud, that memory will start to become a little bit better, but not, it won't become, you won't have memory like mine. Does anyone else have any, were you not doing CTT today for those of you that just joined us? But I'm answering questions as a remote viewer and a psychic and a vibrational tuning expert about everything. So go ahead, Lucid. How are you?
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Um, this is an unusual question. I recently took on a lot. I'm going back to school and I'm working. So it's just my life's been kind of go, go, go. And ever since I started pushing myself, I physically am breaking down. First day of class after enrollment, I got a kidney stone. I was in the hospital. I'm getting styes on my eye. I severely damaged my finger and it's not healing. I hardly ever get hurt or get sick, but ever since I started this, I keep having these issues and it's making me think like, I don't know if some part of me is self-sabotaging myself. It, I don't know, it makes me think like I'm choosing something that's not the right path for me.
I would listen to that intuition. So what I got is that all this, the work and the classes are contributing to stress, which is damaging your myelin sheath. I don't know what the myelin sheath is, but I would definitely look into that. I also get this like feeling, I felt it in my hip lower back too. So that was probably the kidney stone that you had. I think that
Yeah.
there are more kidney stones that are coming. And so I would look into some type of supplementation which is going to help break down those kidney stones, or just look for a better way to have like another creative outlet. And the other image that I got was of the Trivial Pursuit little, disc, and you have a couple pieces missing, even though it feels like you're piled on high. If you could find something which is more of a stress release, or walks through nature, getting back in touch with, a thing from your childhood that brings you joy, then that joy is what's missing because you're pushing yourself so hard. And that's happening to another friend of mine too, is that they're so stressed over this new information that they need to learn that they're breaking their body down. And it's because you don't have enough time to take care of what the nourishment, what your body really needs. You might be eating right, but the joy is not there anymore, right?
Yeah.
And so I would look for, like, ask yourself, in my youth, what brought me the greatest happiness? And we could do that as a remote viewing target too. And
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
certainly, thank you. That was a great question.
Thanks.
Anybody else have any questions about, seriously, any of the probes that I have done? You asked me about any of those people. What else? Here's another thing that you might not know. Can everyone remote view? Yes, some people better than others. It's like, can anyone play the piano? Yes, with practice, anyone can remote view. Some people are great initially, and then other people can be great if they practice. I was okay when I started in 2002. But then I should finish that story, I guess. So then I learned controlled remote viewing and other remote viewing modalities, and studied like 5 or 6 different remote viewing modalities too. So we've come up on the top of the hour. I will say thank you to everybody who's been here. I'll close the recording, and then you can ask me questions that you don't want to have on the regular recording. So thank you very much, everybody. It's remoteviewit@gmail.com if you're interested in my classes or any of the vibrational tuning modalities, or the talk therapy, awakening self healing, to balance out those lifetimes that you've had. We've all had stress, And we've all had stress now and in past lifetimes. And there's no other way really to unpack that and get rid of it. So, interested in that, please let me know. Look out. And I hope to talk to you all soon. We'll see you next week.